Yeah.
Everybody got a new suit.
We all went to
with a brand new hat.
on a
Brand new
Sunday.
hat. You remember felt
And then
that?
drive to Wharton, and we go to Uncle Joe's store, and everybody got a new suit. Matter of fact, a whole new
Outfit,
wardrobe.
yeah.
shoes, socks.
Hat.
Rick,
You
that
got
we got a
hats.
40% discount on them.
So-
Going back to his discipline, I don't think that he really whipped the children very much.
No?
But he
You'll
knew
see
how,
some wheels.
well, maybe Herman
He didn't whip you
get,
that way.
maybe Herman
He
got
never
his
hit no
share.
place but one place. Always on the tuchus. He never would hit you in the back or anything. Always on the tuchus.
What was the story about the whelps? That wasn't true, was it? Everybody, you always talk about the whelps. But he had a bad temper, though, no?
Well,
He didn't have a bad temper. He just wanted discipline, and he was gonna
He
get it.
respected. He wanted.
I remember one time when he asked E.O. Hutchinson. E.O. Hutchinson told me the same story himself. 20 years later, he says, Herman, I called your father up. I says, you've been a bad boy. He said, well, I've got to discipline him. And Pop says, go ahead and discipline him, but don't kill him. Do everything but don't kill him.
Much of his discipline was, he just knew how to look at them with
Stern,
Oh, yeah.
stern
Look.
look.
a certain look in order to know that he was upset and they were in for it.
And
Well,
another
You
thing,
know, he did.
Did he
have-
scream? What
he
about
had-
screaming or hollering?
No,
No,
I don't-
I tell you, he had a sense of humor too.
Uh-huh.
Cause he'd always ask me, you have enough? You have enough? You know what I'm doing this for? You have enough?
He'd say that to you when he was whipping you? Really?
I know, he told, in the guts of Kabama, she never would whip us. She'd pinch you, she'd pull your hair. And said, but you wait, when Papa gets home.
Oh, really?
And boy, when he said that, we knew we
What
had
would you
to.
do? What would you do to aggravate your mother that would cause her to say, "Okay, you wait for your father"? What kind of thing would you do to do?
Not listening to her.
Just
tell her
minor
to do
listen.
something.
Like any
Just-
children hollering, screaming at each other. You know how children
Yeah.
are.
Pick on one another.
Believe me.
We were in Austin Sunday, and the kids would, if we would have done what they did, I'm sure we'd have gotten a whipping,
Uh-huh.
or we would have gotten some kind of discipline.
Do you?
And all they said to the children there was, "You're going to be in big trouble."
Yeah.
But Papa never said you'd be in big trouble.
We knew we were.
We gave us a look. We knew.
Do you recall a specific time where your mother herself, where she disciplined you?
I really,
No,
I
I never
don't
can
think
recall my mother.
I didn't get too many whippings. I can't even
Yeah, Mayo
recall.
was always a good boy.
Well,
He
I was always to the
he was-
store.
You don't recall getting whippings at all.
Mayo was still a bossa, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, the guts of her mama, she couldn't hurt nothing. She had no temperament to hurt somebody. She couldn't, if you
Children,
cried,
even if you did something.
if you cried, she would cry. She couldn't,
her feelings.
her feelings were too.
Well, how could she couldn't abate your father's anger when he'd come and tear one of you guys up, and she couldn't?
Oh, she cried.
She did.
She cried. If we get a bad whipping, when he hurt us, and when she says cry, she'd say, Joe, that's enough for you. It's enough. She said,
Did
Yeah, I
he
remember
stop
that.
when she
you
said
sure
that?
would. She'd always say,
Joe,
Nick, Joe, that's enough.
And she used to, and he'd stop. Would he listen to her?
Well, he'd give her a
Most
couple more.
of the time, most
He'd
of
give her
the
a
time.
couple more licks and stop.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But she always would take
I
up.
remember Denise
I'll say
looking
one thing, for a little man, he was a powerful man.
I never will forget one.
'Cause I was big.
Herman was on the porch, and he said, "You ain't big enough to catch me."
Herman said that to him.
Yeah.
And boy, he took 3 steps and he had Herman by the nape of the back. He said, "Huh? I can catch you? See, I'm still pretty young."
Is that what he said?
Yeah, am I right? He didn't whip you that, but he said, "Don't never think
I
you're
can
so."
catch you.
He said, "Don't never think you're so strong that you can outrun me."
Is that what he said?
I
Really?
remember him catching me, you know, right there at Miss Ham's house,
Right.
that cottonwood tree.
Yeah, right there.
Catching you?
Grab hold of that cottonwood tree. I grabbed hold of that cottonwood tree. His belt was off in 5 minutes. Whop, whop.
So you think you got more than your share? You got.
I took the punishment for the whole
I'll
family.
tell you one thing, and never forget. One day we was playing in the backyard, and Herman he would pick on. He wasn't scared of nobody. And Billy Ham was popping some firecrackers, and he hauled off and popped him in the mouth of somebody. And old Billy Ham dropped a bag of giant and ripped his whole brand new suit. Boy, I know he.
Who did what?
Billy Ham.
Billy Ham.
That was a neighbor.
Right, what?
You remember when we were
A big
thinking that
giant firecracker.
It ripped whose suit?
And it tore Herman's whole, am I right?
pants?
I remember it just
So
like.
what happened? Your father was upset about that?
Oh, Herman, you was gonna get killed when he popped that brand new suit.
I tell you, we used to play on a creek. Right behind our house was a creek, and we dug a big cave there. And I think I had about the same temperament Papa did.
That's right.
I blew off the handle so fast.
Just like that.
There was a guy by the name of Hodges. What was his name?
No, his name
Gross,
was
was it Hodges Gross?
No, Hodges. Hodges. Not Kenneth Hodges. I can't remember his name. Well, anyway, he upset me. And the only thing I had in my hand was a claw hammer. And I threw that claw hammer and hit him right in the back of the head. I said, oh my God, I killed him. And I started to run away. About the time I got to the house, I saw him getting up, so I said, I'll go back. I didn't kill him.
What about
Lucky.
your father as a horseman? Do you recall anything about your father riding horseback,
Yeah,
going
very good.
horseback riding?
But Herman was the best horse rider.
Yeah.
Herman was pretty. One day, a sugar, a colored man,
Oh,
comes
Mr.
to the
Dyke.
store and says, "Hey, Mr. Joe, I didn't know you had a son that rides in the circus." He says, "What do you mean?" Says, "I saw your oldest son Herman, and he was going down the Matagorda Highway, and he was leaning off the horse's back with one foot in the saddle, and his hands are flying, and the horse is flying, and he's out, ho, boy, ho."
And Mr. Dyke's horse.
So what happened? Which Mr. Dyke?
I died.
So what happened? What did he do?
I fell off the damn horse and the horse ran away.
The horse ran over you.
Run away.
Where did Pop? Did Pop go get him or something? What?
Yeah, they got Mr. Dykes had a touring Buick that time.
Yeah, great big old
And he
dude.
went, they got the horse.
How did you get a hold of the horse?
Well, Mr. Dykes put me on the
Oh,
horse.
he let you borrow it or something?
Yeah.
And your father used to go horseback riding often, or what?
Oh, yeah, on Sunday, he used to go with over to Dykes and get, what is that horse? King, I think his name was King. Black, beautiful horse, big horse, you remember?
I'll never forget how Mr. Dyke had crabs.
Well, he remember he took us
Put them in the
around.
ice box. And, yeah, that's the first time we ate crab meat.
Well,
And I'll tell you
Papa
something.
never did
He
eat.
put him in an ice box?
Oh, Dad, we
Dad never ate crab.
we didn't
You
have a
remember
nice
Mr. Dykes
box. We
did.
put them in a tow sack. We didn't have ice boxes at that
Yeah.
time.
So
But
I know they were
he
good,
took us,
nice,
I remember
good,
one
sweet
time he
meat.
took us to Little Boggy, you remember?
Yeah.
And we caught a lot of crabs, and he knew Dad wouldn't eat crabs. But anyway, we brought him back in a tow sack, a burlap bag, by the way, because we call them tow sacks. And he took him home. He had a Schweitzer called Martha, and Martha cooked them for him. Oh, he loved crabs. He really.
there's an Eidich.
Yeah.
I died.
And I'll tell you,
You're a fine man, fine man.
and I'll tell you something else about old man Dykes. I'll never forget, we were boys, and one day he come running to the store, says, "Herman, Sidney, come on, Joe, get in the truck, get the kids get in the trunk, and Joe come up front, and we're gonna go see a gusher, the first gusher in Matagorda County."
You remember?
We drove across the river and went over to Buckeye,
Buckeye.
and there was a gusher, and I'll never forget, an old wooden derrick,
Oh,
and all just shooting right out of the ground, right up into the sky. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, another thing. This Mr. Dyke was he loved my mother and daddy real well. And one day he come in and says, "Joe," says, "you got to do something. You can't just
Be a grocery.
be a groceryman all your life. You should buy a piece of ground." He says, Dyke, he says, "Where am I getting money?" He says, "Well, let me show you. I got a couple of lots. Come with me. I'm going to put," and that time he got him in the truck and took him down Avenue C.
Oh, yeah.
And he
First
had the
property.
2 lots there. He had 2 lots there. He says, "Let me sell you these 2 lots, and someday you get enough money, you'll build some houses." So he's come back and he's laughing and says, "You making a joke with me, Mr. Dyke?" He says, "How can I buy those lots? I don't have no money." He says, "Well, what do you have?" He says, "Well, the only money I got,
2 $5 gold.
my three of them, because ma'am and me and you.
Yeah.
The Gutsake Uncle Joe gave for each boy that was born a $2.50 gold piece.
$5 gold.
5, what is it, 2.5? I don't remember the exact.
Yeah.
But it was 3 gold pieces, small. They weren't very big.
Yeah.
And he said, "You give me those for collateral." and I'll give you the lots. And the guy
He
said,
sold them lots for that price.
no, he paid them out, I think.
No, he didn't.
Well, now, maybe, all right, so he give, then about 4 or 5 years later, he comes back to Pop, and that's Old Gulf was already tearing up then. He says, Joe, you're a big fool. You got them damn lots. They're not bringing you a dang thing. Says, I'll tell you what, give me $500. We'll go to Old Gulf. We'll buy a house in Old Gulf, and we'll move it on the lot, and you'll rent the house, and you'll have some money coming. You'll have a little extra to help you meet your obligation.
Yeah.
So he says, you mean for $500? He said, I ain't got five. I said, well, how much you got? He said, I got 200, I think he had 250, 100. He said, come on, we'll go. And he paid the difference. And they bought the house and had it moved over there, and that's the first piece of property.
I thought he built the house and then he brought the golf ball.
No. He built the old house first.
And
And
that
then
was
he
the
bought,
house y'all
then,
moved
and then
in?
Aaron Greenberg moved over here.
Aaron Greenberg.
See, that was later. Aaron Greenberg.
Oh, he moved in our old house.
Yeah, but that he built that house.
Yeah.
He built that, or maybe he built that
Mr.
house
Haight.
and then he might have.
Mr. Haight built that house.
Yeah.
That was Haight. And after that, he built the house where he moved, for Leon Guzik.
For
So
Sidney
you know
Goff.
how he bought that,
He bought that lot,
bought
and
the
he
lot,
built that house.
and then he
down.
sold all the carpet grass off to pay for the.
He built that house there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, no, first he tore the old house down that was on the corner.
Yeah.
And he
used that
built a
old-
garage apartment.
That's right.
Built the garage apartment first.
Built a garage apartment,
And
then,
then Sidney Golub wanted to move. He moved away and he didn't come back. That was Sidney Golub. I think Sidney Golub.
Yeah.
And Sidney says, "Look, Mr. Joe says I don't have a place to live." He was living where Dumbro was, and Mr. he sold the stuff to Dumbro, and he said, "How about building me a house?" And he built the house where that is, and then he went and opened up the baker shop. You know, right? He opened the
Where
baker
Bachman-
shop. Where Bachman was. He opened the baker shop.
What about the y'all used to go to barbecues and things? What about barbecue out at Freeman's? Some
We used
barbecue.
to have a community barbecue.
From Sheriff Israel, isn't it?
Gareth Israel used to have a barbecue, and the first place we had it was Mr. Henry Freeman's field back in the
On
woods.
Sergeant.
And so, what was the story about Pop driving off a bridge or something? Do you remember that?
it was what
He slipped off of the bridge.
He had a couple
Drawbridge
too many
in
beers.
Sergeant.
He had a couple of beers and he got it was
You know,
raining.
it's chicken. Papa liked his whiskey.
And what happened? He drove off the bridge.
Stops.
Well, he wasn't,
No, he wasn't
didn't
drunk.
drink that much.
No, he wasn't drunk, but he was feeling pretty good. He was feeling
So
pretty good.
he drove off the bridge then?
No, it was wet. See, it
He
rained
slipped off the
and
bridge.
slipped. The one wheel flipped.
Anyway, anybody could have slipped off that bridge because it was half.
So who we all in the car or what?
Herman was in the car. That's
I was in
all.
the car.
That's Herman and Papa was in the car.
That's it.
Mama says, "What are you trying to do? Kill my oldest son?"
What about Herman Wadler? Was he close to y'all? To you guys? I think he was close to
Herman and
Herman.
I were very close.
Uh huh.
In
He's
fact,
a good-hearted guy. He was a very good.
Herman was the best, as far as I'm concerned, the best wilder.
What?
Oh, they were all, you
They were all good. Now, let me just.
That's right. But
Well, you were
that
close.
was
He
pretty-
was
he
close.
You be friends with
Well, you were closer to Herman's age, the reason why, we were all closer to Herman was the youngest.
Uh huh.
And we bummed around more with Herman than the
What?
rest.
There used to be a story.
Herman, matter of fact, I wouldn't doubt Herman Wadler probably fixed Herman up with his first
Girlfriend.
girlfriend.
Oh, really? Is that the kind of guy he was?
I'm sure he did.
And his wife fixed Herman up with me,
Is that right?
to his brother.
So what? Was there a story about a hog with Herman Wadler? What was that story?
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
Me, I couldn't stop laughing. So they butchered the
The hog died.
The hog died. They were going to butcher a
It was
hog.
during the
Meat
summer.
market. The dog died.
What was so funny about it? Why was it funny?
He just have to hit him. It's funny.
It just hit me funny. I don't know why.
Did he lose money on it or what?
We lost money on it.
Well, the hog probably cost him $15 at that time,
Mhm.
15 at the most $20.
But
It
at
was a
that
lot
time,
of money.
$20 was a lot of money.
And he had a one-legged black man that did his butchering.
Lonzo,
for him.
Lonzo.
You remember?
Lonzo.
And so I don't know whether Lonzo called and told him the hog died or what, but
He called
Herman found out that the hog was dead. He went to Herman Wadler and he was laughing. Of course, $20 was a lot of,
Y'all knocked her.
It was a bunch of money.
So you got,
knocked your plum down.
If you made $20 a week, you made good money.
so Herman,
So, Herman was laughing, and it upset Herman Water. I think he could knock him out.
really,
Knock him down.
did he hit you?
No.
Nah,
No.
yeah, man.
What about the circus coming to town? Do y'all recall any circuses coming to Bay City?
Oh yeah, I was a real enthusiast about clowns. I just loved clowns. Every time I saw them, I fainted. So one day, the circus come to town. So the guys like Mom says, "You better not go out there." Says, "White Cementula is gonna be here." So I said,
Vice Dimensional?
Vice Cementula.
Yes.
They painted their face white.
White men.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not gonna be scared, Mom. I'm not gonna be scared. So the circus, the clowns come up on the sidewalk, and I saw them coming. So I got behind, got to take a mama underneath the cash register,
Yeah.
and she says, "Sidney, where are you at? There's the Vice Cementula." And she looked at it, I fainted.
Oh, really?
Do you remember where they had the first circus we went to?
I don't.
It was in South End. You remember where, right there across from George Washington's house,
Yeah.
right down the corner. First circus.
They used to let school out for circuses?
Yeah, they let school out, the kids would go down to the,
Parade?
to
Was it,
would go to the railroad
train,
track.
oh, the trunk.
And they would unload the circus at the railroad track.
did they have a parade downtown or something?
Then
Oh, yeah,
they would
the
parade around the
Horses
square.
and the elephants,
They had
Uh-huh.
elephants,
the
horses.
camels, the lions. They pull those wagons, those big wagons.
Tell the story about your Young Judea convention.
Yeah, what about that?
Well,
When Papa let us have a car.
yeah.
Where was it at?
Dad just got to buy a brand new Dodge. A brand new Dodge.
Oh, the soda.
DeSoto. And we begged him, said, we're going to be at a convention
In Dallas.
in Dallas or San Antonio.
Dallas.
Dallas.
You all went, all three of you went? Or all four of you went?
Oh,
I was-
me and Albert Colbert and Sidney and
Samuel
Samuel.
Did Ethel go too?
Albert Zabadowski. No,
That was
go.
young.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was the driver.
So what happened?
All right.
Well, we drove around Dallas and hit a railroad track, tore the muffler off.
Oh,
We weren't allowed to put our money together to patch it up.
Did your father find out?
Come home, the mufflers tore off, the bumpers.
Did your father really upset about it?
A brand new car.
He wasn't upset. He says, well, I had the car drive. Pop, it drive like a brand new diamond. Looked like a brand new car.
And he got in and he started up.
Without a muffler.
The muffler without a muffler, you know, the
You're
muffler.
a diamond.
So what happened? So what happened? Did you get tan?
He didn't whip it.
No,
He just laughed about it.
I do remember when Herman took up typing. He must have been in the 9th grade or so. And
He
I
bought
remember
me a
Dad
typewriter.
Dad went to Houston. And he bought something else. But he brought Herman back a brand new typewriter,
Mm-hmm.
little portable.
It was
You
really.
remember that, Herman?
Yeah, and it wasn't the right kind of type.
Oh, really? Were you excited about it, or?
I was excited about it until I took it to school and typed my typing lessons, and the teacher says, Herman, I'm gonna give you, knock off 10 points because you got the wrong kind of typewriter.
Okay. All right. How about a few other stories I have here? What about there was a time when y'all belonged to a gang in Bay City?
Let's not mention that.
What's the story behind that?
We had a momster in town called Tony George. And Tony was into everything. So he talked us all into joining his gang. You know where Anderson Brothers garage used to be?
Yeah.
The
what's
railroad used to have a little barn there.
No, the highway department used to
What?
test concrete.
Yeah.
So for our clubhouse, we dug a hole under this little house
Yeah.
in a cave and put everything in there that we
Picked
stole.
up. Didn't belong to us.
Where'd you pick stuff up from? Stores and things in
From
town?
stores in town.
Yeah. So what?
No, to give you an idea, I went to the Bachman store and I stole a side of bacon. What the hell I did a side of bacon?
And I went and got a watch at Butler and Grimes.
The city knew how to watch it, but the grind.
What? Well, Commander, what'd you get? What did you?
He wasn't involved in that.
No, I wasn't in that.
You knew? Did you know they were involved in it?
I don't remember. I can't remember. I think I
Mine
was
was
probably
And,
too
and
small.
I'll tell you what happened.
I
And
about
what
was
happened-
4 or 5 years old.
When they found out about this here, Frank Carr was the city marshal.
City marshal.
And he lined us all up in a row like a convicts. And We
Make
each held
signs.
hands. We went to every
Every
store
store
where we
took
picked
everything
stuff up
back.
and had to take it back.
Did you have to tell your
apologize.
Did you have to tell your parents also?
Oh, we didn't.
Papa knew.
And what did he tore you up about that? Did he tell you, is that one of the ones you got torn
That's
up?
one of the times he tore me up too.
Uh huh.
I'll tell you
Well,
this
how many
thing.
people were in the
Okay.
Wait about 50.
Like
Boy.
we all know that we're in the grocery business,
Marion Bass.
and
I gotta go to bed.
I don't remember. It must have been the late '30s. We put in a meat, a little meat showcase.
Uh huh.
Remodeled store, put in a meat showcase, and Dad would never would touch any of the meat.
Uh huh.
He'd either call me or Herman or Sidney to cut the meat.
No pork or no
No,
hog?
he wouldn't touch it. And we had made a little screen at that time. The pork, they have it called salt pork.
Uh
They still
huh.
have it now.
Right.
It's salt pork down, but there was no refrigeration, so we had to protect it. If fly would set on it, the next day you had maggots in the meat. And it didn't take long for the maggots to develop. And anyway, I remember we used to scrape the maggots off of the meat.
Salt, bacon, stuff.
Yeah, people used to eat that way. They did.
Yeah.
They just scrape the maggots off and eat it. And
Later on, though, the Gunthake Papa would take a piece of paper to pick up a vital.
Yeah,
The tail, big tail, it'd have pigtail.
yeah.
But he always had a piece of paper. He never would touch it with his hand. He'd pick it up.
So
Put it
your
on.
father evidently was Shabbos observant,
Oh,
but he didn't. He still had you all work. Or okay, we'll start again. So you were talking about the maggots in the meat. So about Shabbos observant. Your father would have your mother go to work, and he would never. Would he deal with money on
He
Shabbos?
would be, definitely. He would go to the store. He would
Go
have
down.
Up until they sold out.
You would go a little later.
When he sold out, that's when he becomes
Yeah.
Shabbos.
He didn't sleep in on Shabbos morning, on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, every evening Dad would take a nap about 1 o'clock. I remember when I was a kid, I used to we had a little old wheelbarrow, and I'd put a sack of beans or something on it and make him a bed, and he used to take a nap in the back of the store, right in the back door.
Oh, really?
Because there was summer's hot, but there's a breeze always coming through that door,
Uh huh.
and he would take a nap in the evening.
So Shabbos though, he did go to the store. Would he handle money?
Yes, he would
Yeah.
have one.
So he would work like everybody else.
Walk, you never drive. Papa
This
never
was
drive to Shabbos.
He didn't
He
smoke. He didn't smoke on
didn't
Shabbos.
smoke
He
on
didn't drive.
He never drive.
You know, I heard the story that your mother used to slug around 24-pound sacks of flour on her shoulders, though, on her back.
I'll tell you a good
He
story.
really did.
During the Prohibition, we had a customer by the name of Polinsky.
Yeah.
And one Saturday, Pop would have load some sugar on Mr. Polinsky's
Wagon.
wagon. Usually that day there was sugars in 100-pound sacks, and I would load maybe 10 sacks of sugar on that thing.
And brown
And
mule
maybe
tobacco.
No,
And brown mule tobacco.
brown mule tobacco we used to sell in 10-pound kegs, and
Apricots.
oats.
Apricots.
No, oats.
Apricots. We made the whiskey,
Rye and
Sugar?
oats. And
sugar.
I said, Pops, this is a hard job. What does that man use all this here for? He says, shut your mouth, look.
Your father told you that?
Shut your mouth, don't say nothing.
Well,
Shut your mouth, look.
There's a bootleg.
He's making
He's a bootlegger. I said, how you gonna eat all this sugar?
Well,
Is
that's
that what
what
he
I was wondering, that's why.
So your father was involved. He knew those people were doing it.
Sure he was involved in
It was
it.
not against, it wasn't illegal to sell the,
Right.
the ingredients. And then we used to sell a lot of malt, a lot of cans of malt.
Malt.
Oh, really?
And they made beer out of it.
Right. What about
Homebrew.
as far as Shabbos? You were talking about. Did your mother tear toilet paper before Shabbos?
Yes,
No,
sir.
Dad did, Mother, I don't know.
Mom never. No, Mom always tore for Shabbos. That paper and put it on top of the mold.
Really?
And the guts take the Papa too.
And
I remember
Esther
I'll
too
tell
was.
you one thing about Papa.
What's that?
He would never
You
pick
remember
up a
that?
piece of hosser.
He would. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about that a minute
We
ago.
would get the salt pork joes.
Later on, he'd take a piece of
He'd take a
wrapping
piece
paper,
of paper and wrap
Right.
it around
but he
it.
never would touch it with his hand.
Uncle Herman, how did you learn to stop biting your fingernails?
I still buy it.
Well, in those days, was there a story about that going up
Did they have
to
a
walk?
ribbon?
I'll refresh your memory. Walker Magic came by one
Yeah, he
day.
took me to a dead man.
Uh-huh, sure
Upstairs.
did.
What's the story
You know,
about?
they had a dead man. A man had died. A traveling salesman had died. And they didn't know anything about it. So for years and years, they kept him embalmed.
For
on the
years?
second
There,
floor.
Walker Magic.
For years, Ann?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, for
Oh,
years.
God.
And
But that was
one
like
day,
a mark.
old man walks and says, you know, I want to stop you from biting your nails. He says, come upstairs, I want to show you something. And I went upstairs with him, and he shoved me up against that dead man.
Dead body. Oh.
You put your hands on it?
Yeah, I put my hands on it. I said, my God, that man's dead.
Well, what did they keep him for? Was it a law they couldn't bury
They
him
didn't know
until
what
they
to
could
do with it.
identify
Get
him?
that
They weren't
smell.
going to bury him without
I thought you said
somebody
that
paying
Pop told you that told him, I wish that boy would stop biting his nails.
He told Mr. Walker, said, I'd give anything if he'd quit biting his nail. That boy just chews him to the quick. Says, I'll fix him. I promise you, I'll fix him. And he took him across to the walk upstairs, and he told the shooker, oh, what's his name? He come to the store. Murphy.
Murphy.
He says, Murphy, take him upstairs and put his hand on that body. So he took Herman and said, come on, Mr. Den. Said, I'm going to show you something. He'll ask him, he'll tell you the story himself right now. He says, Herman, you remember? So he took him upstairs and says, come here, I'm going to show you. Look at this dark room over here. Where? He says, come over here. And there was on the slab. He says, give me your hand, I'm going to show you and feel him. And he touched me. He said, he's dead. He said, you ain't kidding, he's dead. He's been dead for 3 or 4 years.
That's too funny. What about?
By the way, this Mr. Walker that we were talking about,
He was in
now,
a Ku Klux Klan.
he took Dad to a funeral one day, and they were burying a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's a father, Herman.
this is how my
Son
dad
of the
became
Ku
a
Klux
Mason.
Klan.
And he was so impressed with the
Service.
ritual, that he asked Mr. Walker if he could become a Mason. And that's how Dad became. He took his work. Mr. Walker was taught masonry, and he'd go across. Dad could barely speak English, and he'd go to Mr. Walker's office, which was next door to the tire store, and he would ask. He would teach him the works. And by the time Dad get back to the store, he had forgotten, so he had to run back over to learn it again. But he did learn. He did learn the.
He was raised in the lodge here. He was the first Jewish person to be raised in the lodge.
That's right.
Did he?
No,
What?
there was one other.
No, not in our lodge. Not in Bay City. In Madagall there was, but not in Bay City. He's the
I
first
think
Jewish
Mr.
Mason raised in Bay City, Texas.
I
Even
don't-
before Aaron Greenberg or
Yeah.
Toget.
Are you sure?
What about? What was? How did he stop from being blackballed though?
I don't know.
William Walker.
Evidently, no, it wasn't William Payne Walker.
Payne Walker.
That's a dandy.
William Payne Walker.
Yeah.
Payne
William
Walker.
they said was an anti-Semitic, but I don't think he was.
He wasn't. He was part of the Ku Klux Klan, but he took a liking to Dad, and he signed Pop's petition.
And that's how he
And
got in.
J.J. Spurgeon,
Yeah, Jack.
two of the biggest Masons in Bay City.
And how did they stop him from getting
Well,
blackballed
I'll
though?
tell you how he stopped. When they put him in to,
Put a petition in?
you get petition in, Jack Spurgeon says, if there's one blackball against this young man because of his race or religion, I will walk out of this lodge. Am I right?
That's what he said.
Exact words he said. And Pop, like I say, Pop told us, and so did
Jack
Spurgeon.
Spurgeon also said when Jakey Caseman was up there, he said, did you ever see a goat shit?
What happened? What happened? What happened? Yeah, Jake Caseman.
It's so many blackballs. They had so many blackballs. They said, you ever seen a ghost shit?
Oh, really?
Had so many black balls, there was no white ones.
They couldn't get him.
Poor old man Casey, the same
Pop
way.
Greenberg is the one that represented Jakey Caseman.
They couldn't get him in.
And
Huh?
old man Caseman too, he couldn't.
That's right.
And
Both of them.
Manuel told me that he was the first
I was the youngest.
youngest Mason in this county.
Oh, really? How old were you?
To become a
How old were you? When
Exactly 21.
Right at the right age, huh?
And
You know
Herman
something?
took his work. and
I was a
Martin-
young Mason too, but I had to be tried to get in my own lodge.
Oh, really?
He was raised.
'Cause I
in
took all my
Washington,
degree work in Seattle, Washington,
when in the army.
All right. Let me
as a courtesy to this lodge.
move on a little bit. What were the store hours at the store here?
We closed the season at 6.
No, when we were first kids, they stayed open sometimes at 10, 11, 12.
Oh, I know, Saturday night. Saturday night we
Yeah.
closed. And during the week, it seemed like we closed at 6.
7.
And then we started closing at 5.
That was
But on Saturday, we would stay open some nights till 1 o'clock in the 1 o'clock in the morning.
a big night, huh?
That was a big.
The farmers would come
Well,
in.
the farmers would
Yeah.
come in. They'd come in
They're
wagons.
off into town.
There was
in the
a,
country.
Yeah.
they had
All
hitching
day
posts.
Saturday.
And their pickups.
They had hitching
They
posts
didn't have no pickups then. They would
on,
have
on,
Buck-
Behind the
Avenue
bag.
Wagons.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Avenue H, where our old store used to be. They
Yeah.
had hitching posts across the street. And they,
Across the alley.
Yeah, and Dr. Simon had a clinic there. Before he had the clinic, there was,
A
sort
hitching
of
post,
parking there.
You park all
And
the
they would
wagons.
actually come in wagons and,
I
and,
can
I
talk
guess
about-
go home in wagons.
talk about that. I believe Herman and I can remember when on 7th Street there was a wooden bridge on 7th Street. There was shell up to the
I could remember when they paved 7th Street.
and also there was a
You know how
wooden
they paved 7th Street?
with mule, wasn't it?
Mules and Mexican
Drag lines.
drag lines.
And also there's a wooden walk. They didn't have those cement walks. There were wooden boardwalks all the way up to where the guts I've had in store to walk them back, and then they had cement from there to the I
Is it?
I'll tell you a
Is it
little
true that-
history of Bay City. Mr. Hawkins, Frank Hawkins, had a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come down 7th Street. I remember, I could see it. Come down 7th Street with that black woman next to him. And he had a shotgun laying in his lap. And nobody better say a word. Nobody
Really?
said a word about that.
Is it true that when a white person was on the sidewalk, black people had to get off the sidewalk?
Yes, the last street fight that we had in Bay City,
right in front of our store.
it started right across the street from Dan's grocery store.
What happened?
And, well, it's something like Johnny Head.
Yeah.
He was walking down the street. I don't remember if he was with a woman or what, but this black fella, he passed the black fella. The black fella didn't take his hat off to the lady.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Johnny liked to fight anyway. It didn't matter. He would.
This is Bird brother?
Birdhead's, yeah,
Older brother.
Johnny, older brother.
Yeah.
And anyway, he started fighting. They came across the street. The black fella came across the street in front of Dad's store. You had to go up 3 steps.
Yeah.
Into the building. And Johnny had come up there, and Dad had a bunch of axe handles out in front of his store. And 3 or 4 of the white thief guys picked up axe handles. And anyway, Johnny started hitting this guy with his axe handles. And I don't remember, it seems like that the guy took the axe handle away from him and hit him or something. And Johnny ran in the store and got a butcher's knife. Dad we used to cut bacon with, but so big. And he got this knife, this meantime.
Took it away from your father? Just took off the counter or what?
A butcher block.
Yeah.
And so he ran out the back door, and the chauffeur, the black fella, had started down the alley there. And he went around where, at that time it wasn't anything, the staff had a hotel.
Yeah.
And he ran around there, and just before he got to the end of the block, Johnny threw his knife, and I guess missed him maybe 2 inches from hitting him in the head. And so the guy kept running. He ran around the block, and he ran into there was a butcher shop next to Dad's store, even about 2 doors down.
Yeah.
And he pleaded with the fellow there, called him Ben Harrison. And Ben, well, he didn't, you know, he wasn't
Plain old boy.
Very quiet
but
man.
real quiet person, but he knew that if Johnny ever catch him, he'd kill him. So he went and got his shotgun. Matter of fact, Johnny was his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Johnny was his brother-in-law. And he went to the back door, and Johnny was gonna come in and get the guy out of the store. And Ben said, if you come one more step closer, says, I'm gonna kill you.
You can remember when Cecil.
So you better back off and go leave the guy alone.
Yeah.
So of course he knew Ben probably would have done it. And so he backed off, and that was the
end.
fight.
That's the last street fight there was in Bay City.
Fight there was in Bay
You
City.
never looked him up again later?
It's all over.
I remember one time when Frank, Cecil Milligan shot, what's his name?
Cy Brown.
Cy Brown.
What happened? What happened
Kill
there?
him?
No.
No, he saved his life. He shot the cancer off his liver.
What happened? What did he shoot him for?
Huh?
He cut him.
Why did he cut him though?
Well,
What
he
happened?
went to Cecil Milligan, and Cecil says, "Si, you owe me a little bill, and I saw you over to QP."
No. What happened this time was Cy Brown. Mr. Milligan he didn't hate colored people, but he didn't like them.
Yeah.
But anyway, this Cy Brown said something to a shook woman out on the sidewalk, and he went and mouthed off, and the shook to come in to buy from Mr. Cecil. And he kept picking on this woman, and Cecil said, "Now, Cy, I want you to get out of the store and leave this woman alone. She's in my store, and I want you to get it." He says, and he had his pocket knife, and he Cy was, and he said, he kept mouthing off, and she said, "Now, I'm not taking one more time." I said, "Cy, leave that woman alone and get out of here." And about that time, he just reached over and cut Mr. Cecil on the leg. And that's all Mr. Cecil needed. So he walked around, and he kept a 38 special in his cash register. He picked his 38 special, come back to the door. Si done knew he done wrong, and he started across the street. When he did, Cecil pulled out and bang, shot him. And he fell on his knees, and he got up, and then he run over to Sid. And in the meantime, they told Jack, somebody called Jack Cole, said, "Cecil just shot Cy Brown," said, "You better go, we're going to kill him."
Jack Cole was sheriff then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jack Cole comes by, and Cecil as a young man, had scarlet fever, and it affected his blood, and he couldn't grow no hair. He didn't have a hair on his body, and
Wore a shingle.
he wore red wig all his life. And so Jack come over and said, "Cecil, you're cut bad, and you know with your blood situation. Go on, you kill him. He's laying over there, but insist he's dead. Don't worry." So let me go over to Cecil. "Cecil, you ain't got time. You're bleeding too bad, and with your sickness, you can't afford to lose too much blood."
You took him to the hospital?
No, Jack Cole took him to the hospital.
I thought you took him.
No, I helped put him in the car, and they brought him to the hospital, and they picked him. And darn if the ambulance didn't come and pick old Cy Brown up, took him to the hospital, and
And Cecil saw it.
and when he got Monday, they sent Cecil Milligan a bill
To patch him up.
Really?
Oh, no.
Boy,
He saved his life. He cut his cancer off.
What happened? He shot him in the liver, and it
they
saved.
shot him in the back, and it cut right through his liver.
And he had cancer before that, or
He
what?
cancer in the liver, and he just got the
Cirrhosis.
bad part off.
So he was a real bad drunkard.
What about your folks used to buy pecans? Yeah, your father used to buy pecans.
Oh yeah, I never forget. One day, Big Show came in and had about 4 sacks of pecans on the scale, and Papa was weighing, and Papa knew there's no way that those 4 sacks of pecans could wear those.
How do you know that?
When you know when you weigh, you know how much pecans is in a sack. So he said something's wrong. So he actually didn't look around the bag that Shook had his foot on the scale. So Papa didn't say that. He reached back. He got a slit, axe hammer. He had and he looks, and pretty soon he whack said, if I would buy your foot, if you got, he said, "Yo, don't do it no more,
What did he say?
don't do no more. I don't." He only had about 400 pounds of
So what did Pop say? If he
says, "If I'm going to pay for your foot, I want to buy the foot.
I want it on the scale.
I want to, if you put it on the scale, I want to buy." That's the truth.
That's right.
Do you remember that? Did you see that too?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You remember that, Herman?
Was it-
I remember we had a black guy working for us. What was his name? What was that guy's name? They were already in the Army. And he and I would take a
Oh.
150-pound sack of pecans. We'd grab one, he'd grab one side and I'd grab the other.
Rocks.
We'd stack them 8, 10 foot up, and that's how
What
the
the hell that
tall.
nigger's name out?
What was his name?
I can't remember.
Barnes, wasn't it?
What?
No, it wasn't born.
Yeah, C.D. Barnes.
C.D. Barnes.
Sidney Barnes. That's
C.D.
right.
Barnes.
He's gone now too.
Yeah, he's gone too.
What about the story with when the Donenfelds moved down? There was some kind of story with the syrup, some kind of.
Oh,
Do y'all remember that?
Bell jumped over a stack of syrup.
No,
Bell?
No, it was
Murray.
Murray.
Murray?
Yeah, he backed it. He used to stack them real high. You remember how you around?
And about 5 gallons of syrup.
I'll tell you a funny story.
So what happened? Wait a second. What happened?
So Murray was there in the store, and he was going. He always he went like this. He backed into it and poured the whole thing. And during the summertime, the flies come in, and we always mopping up syrup all over the floor. Let Uncle Herman
I'll tell you a
his story.
funny story.
Okay.
Uncle Jaime came from New York during the Depression.
That was that,
And Aunt Esther backed him in a little project. He was to go out in a truck and buy chickens
Yeah.
from the farmers. Chickens and eggs,
Hides.
hides, everything, and bring it back and stack them in that store. So one day he came in, he says, "Man, if I buy a bargain, did I buy a bargain?"
And Helen. Yeah.
So Aunt Esther says, "What did you buy, Herman?" He said, "I bought shoes, 500 pairs of shoes." So Aunt Esther says, "What kind of shoes you buy?" So he brings him one box of shoes, and Aunt Esther got finished her. He says, "Hi, who are you going to sell these shoes to?" These were 1917 shoes.
There was a high,
high top lady shoes.
for women's shoes.
But
So
he
shoes
said, "I'm
today
going
would be
to
where
New
the
York
party
and sell them to the theater."
He sold, what, took him to New York and sold him to who?
To the theaters for costumes.
You want to hear another good story? Man, I'm telling the story about Buddy Bellbottom and the guts they got
Oh, that was a good story. I'd just gotten out of the service, and I had I'd gotten my severance pay, had a couple of $100, and Buddy Bellbottom, he was always promoting. Man, he knew how to, borrow money.
Who was Buddy Bellbottom?
Buddy Bellbottom worked for
Six
Cecil
right-hand
Millie.
man.
Is he still alive?
No, Buddy's dead now. Anyway, Buddy came to me and heard I'd had some money. So he says, "Mr. Man," says, "I just bought a bedroom set," says, "and I need some money." He says, "You lend to me," he says, "I'll pay you back next week when I get paid, and I'll pay you back I think it's 20% interest in a week." That was pretty good interest. So I lent him $100. I didn't say anything to anybody. So week passes, 2 weeks. I went to Aunt Esther. I says, "Aunt Esther," said, "Buddy Bellbottom give you any money for me?" She says, "Why should he give you money?" I said, "Well, I lent him $100 to buy this bedroom." "No, I lent him $100. What for the bedroom set? He just lent him $100. So he gave me some kind of story. Anyway, she said, "Oh, you go." Says, "You threw your money away. I said, but I'll help you get the money back.
If you
But
promise
you
never
probably never lend another dime." Says, "I'm gonna go tell Buddy that you got another $100, and but you're gonna want some collateral. You got another $100, but you tell him that you're gonna have to have some collateral. He just bought a new bedroom set." Says, "And when he comes to you to borrow the money, you tell him bring the bedroom set up for collateral." So sure enough, here comes old Buddy, same darn day. He says, "Mr. Man," says, "I sure could use another $100. Says, "I sure needs it bad." I said, "Well, Buddy," says, "you got any collateral?" He says, "Well, yes," says, "I've got a new bedroom set." I said, "Well, bring it up to an extra store, and when you get there, I'll give you the money." So sure enough, next morning he had the bedroom set on Cecil's truck. Backed up to the store, we unloaded the bedroom set, and Esther slammed the door shut. Said, "Now when you pay me back the $100, you get your bedroom set back."
Did you get your money back?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get your money back?
About a week.
Weeks or
About a
so.
week.
No
so.
kidding.
But tell the story about she sold the man a suit, it was too big or something. She went behind it and pulled the coat tighter.
Oh, and that's true.
Do you remember that story?
But the other cute one,
And she said, look, see, it fits. And he said, no, I think it's too big. And she kind of pulled the coat tighter on the back. And she told him, it'll fit. You go home, you eat, you get full, and the coat will fit. You'll like the coat. And the man bought the coat too.
Black man or a vicer? You know?
I'm sure he was a black man.
We're talking about Buddy Bell-Bottom. Let me tell you a story. When we tore down our store to remodel it, in between our store there was a big sort of alleyway between Cecil Milligan's store and our store. So when our store was down, we found rows and rows of pennies. Buddy Bell-Bottom had stole these rolls of pennies from Cecil Milligan, running down a rat hole. And you remember we found all these pennies?
Really?
Well, how
And
did
he
he expect to get him out?
Well, he couldn't get them out because he couldn't crawl between the two buildings.
Oh, my God.
What-
And those pennies were old. I mean, man, they were rotten and, you know, corroded and everything.
And
Is
did
he
he
the
come
one that-
over and try to claim them?
No, he'd already left Cecil at that time when we tore our store down.
Is he the one that Aunt Esther caught in the cash and carry story?
no.
Was that Aunt Esther on that story? Was that?
R.C. Milligan was on the story about, went to the bank one day and one of his customers come out of there with a bunch of groceries.
Out of the bank?
Out of
Yeah,
the grocery, he was going to, he was going to,
Uh,
he was going to the bank past the AP store, the QP store, I don't know.
A&P store.
A&P.
yeah.
And the sheriff come out with all these groceries. So he says, hey, he says, whose are those? He says, oh, Mr. Cedar, I just bought them. He says, you bought them? He said, hey, you owe me a bill for $50-something. How can you buy them groceries? Well, I paid cash. He said, you paid cash, but if you paid cash, he says, boy, he said, take those over to my store and put them in the shelf. Now, if you got cash, you can buy it from me.
What
I didn't know you sold for cash.
He said he didn't know.
I didn't know you
sold for
Mr.
cash.
Caesar, I didn't know you sold for cash. Well, so if you want them groceries, you got to pay cash for them.
He only sold for credit, huh?
Yeah. And I'll tell you another cute story about the gut setting and Esther. She used to buy chickens. And one day, this old boy says, Miss Gorman, you still buying chickens? Yeah, and she had a bunch of fresh chickens. She just bought them the same morning. So this old show comes and says, well, I got 6 nice little hens. So pretty. I said, well, bring them in, I'll say so. He brings them in and says, and I said, where did you get these chickens? Oh, says, I picked them up on the way from Amalek. Says, you do. So she weighs the chickens up. Says,
Yeah, the chicken
comes
comes
to-
outside.
it comes about, I think you give her $4 or $5 for the chicken. And so she says, all right, if you give them the money, and she goes to the back to put the chicken in the coop, and her chickens are all missing. It stole her chicken.
Sold him back to her.
I'll tell you a good one. Do you remember this one? You're involved in this one. You're sitting on the front porch in the store. You was eating a hot dog. And Papa Joe came up and says, give me some of that hot dog. And he said, Papa Joe, you don't want to eat these hot dogs. They're plumb full of pork.
No, I didn't say that.
That's the truth.
That's the
What?
truth. You did that.
You did.
No, really?
Yes.
You sure did.
I never heard that. Is that what I told?
You done that, you're yours,
You're guilty of that.
That's a good one. How many languages did your folks speak?
Daddy must speak about 4.
He spoke German.
German,
He
Russian.
spoke
A little
Russian.
Russian. Polish.
He spoke, of course, English.
And
A
Yiddish?
little Hungarian.
Yiddish?
A little,
Well,
yeah, Yiddish.
Yeah,
Speak a little
definitely. Everybody.
Spanish.
He spoke those things.
How about your mother? She spoke the same languages?
Yeah.
Mama mostly Czech and German, little German. Czech, most of it Czech. She's real good at Czech.
Well, she was raised in Czech.
Yeah,
like
but she didn't talk as much as the guts like Papa in German and
Did
No,
she
no.
did she used to visit with the Czech people? Used to come in.
oh
and she used
yeah,
to talk?
love her. Yeah, they used to always come. You
They
remember?
loved it.
But the Czechs liked them both because they could communicate.
Yeah, because they're the only one that could communicate with.
Even today, most of them can't speak English.
What about the story with Pop check bouncing on his one of the early years? He had a check that bounced and he had to go to Mr. Lewis and talk or Mr. McDonald. Did you ever hear a story about that?
I heard something about it.
Yeah, that was. He sent a check to National Biscuit Company in Houston, Texas, for $1.57 when he first went into business. Of course, he made a deposit, and the deposit he made have been maybe $4 or $5. He's written 3 or 4 checks, all of them small checks. and the last one was the natural biscuit company for $1.57 or $1.67, and it came back insufficient. And he went over to Mr. Lewis, Jim Lewis, at the time was a teller, and he started to cry. He says, "Look, I'm new in the country, and I wrote this check, and y'all sent it back. What kind of name am I going to have if you amount?" But says, "Mr. Joe, you don't have any money." He says, "You know, when you put money in," he says, "I put $5 in." He says, "Well, how many checks did you write?" And he wrote about $10 worth of checks. So naturally, when he sold $10 check, he don't have and his last check went through, it was insufficient. So Mr. Lewis says, "Well, Mr. Denn says, don't worry." He said, "I'll see that it's covered. I'll take it from my account." And he paid that.
You know who Papa's best friend was? Mr. Bates.
Yeah,
Not Jim Lewis.
No, Jim Lewis was more expensive.
Yeah, Jim Lewis, definitely. Mr. Bates.
Mr. Bates was just a second-hand man.
What about Grandma Lima's story? I used to hear stories about she couldn't keep a secret. Is that right?
God bless
Yeah,
it. Button.
But
Yeah, they call it
I
button.
don't know why they call
They
it
went,
button.
at that time we met at the crane, and somebody said, don't tell the Watlers.
Was it Abe Schwartz or something?
I forget what it was about, and she, something I said, she started telling the whole story, and then it says, Button says, "You're not supposed to know about it." Every time she just too hard, she couldn't.
It was a button that fell off of someone's blouse,
So I don't know what it
and they weren't supposed to be there because it was Friday night.
was.
It was Friday night?
Driving in the car
Did they drove in the car on Friday night?
to meet at the halfway, you know, at that smokestack they called the claim button.
So wait,
Never understood, never
so
drove
Papa
on
and Grandma
Friday.
would have driven on a Friday night?
No, Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Saturday
I believe
night.
that was Saturday night,
That was
Really?
a good place.
the one time it happened.
And they'd sit out there at that Camel and just talk, just visit for the whole week. Everything got good a week. It's-
Well, that was their contact with the
But
family.
he
But
was
believe me,
married.
Uncle Joe
Bella
never,
already.
Uncle Joe
They
never
were
did that.
engaged already. Bella was engaged.
Huh. What about, and asked you to keep notes on the register. How did you keep track of all those kind of, could you read her writing or anything? Was
No,
she,
she wrote it in Hebrew. Nobody else could read it.
Yiddish.
oh, really?
She knew pretty well what everybody else.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
Aunt Esther was a very, very smart woman. Common sense. She wasn't an educated woman, but she was a very smart woman.
Mm-hmm.
But they read the Jewish paper.
Oh
They
yeah.
were
Both
self-educated.
They were self-educated.
They couldn't
But
read
as
English.
far as
Who,
being
your,
a
your,
business
your mother
woman,
too? Did your mother read Yiddish also? Yiddish? They could both read Yiddish
Yes,
stuff?
both
They
could
took
read
the
Yiddish.
daily forward.
Entrepreneur.
What about your school years? Is there anything particular about your school years growing up, going to school?
Yeah, I'll tell you something about the school years. I had coming home from not John Cherry, but
Bay City High School, Jeff Davis?
Jeff Davis High School. Every day there was a guy who would beat me up. His name was Tony George. "You baby, I'm gonna kill you." So one day I says, "This is one Jew baby ain't gonna kill." So coming home from
Cherry School.
Cherry School, I picked up a 2x4. And I was walking and he caught me by the bridge there. And he said, "You baby, I'm gonna kill you." He said, "No, you son of a bitch, you ain't gonna kill me because I'm gonna kill you." And I literally tore him to pieces with that 2x4.
Really?
And he never touched me after that day. Never called me a Jew baby. We were the best of friends. And from that day on, I don't think I had much to do with him. But when I was in France, I met him in France.
Well,
And where I met him not in France, in Brussels, Belgium, Brussels. They have a statue of a little boy peeing
Right.
right in the square.
Really?
And he was shooting craps. And I heard his voice. I said, "Tony George, you dirty son of a bitch. What are you doing here?" He came over to me and said, "Herman, you're the only man I've ever seen from my hometown." And that man had won the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, the Eagle. He had
Oh,
all good commendations. But he had guts. In fact, he had so much guts, I think the guts would go to kill him.
let me, he died? He's dead?
Well,
He did,
he argued with an 85-year-old man.
The old man shot him with a
And the
shotgun.
old man, John Damon's grandfather, shot him.
Really?
Blew his head off.
Was he a young man? Was he a young man when he killed him?
No, he was a man already 50 years old.
No, he was 80 years old. Tony was
Yeah, Tony's 45, 50
About
years old.
45 years old.
Been 30 years ago, Herman.
What don't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Look, Uncle Manuel,
about 30 years old.
what about your experience? You said you used to go to the movies a lot with your father.
Oh, yeah.
What- how did that-
Every night.
Every night you went to the movies. What?
Practically every night. Whenever they changed the movies, we went.
Did y'all go
I
to?
remember.
Oh, you know, it seemed like we used to go sometimes on Friday night after services during the war.
After service on Friday
You
night,
used to carry the money,
we used
Bill.
to walk
You
around.
carried the money.
Did you all go to the movies together, or did you just you and your father?
Just me and Dad.
See, we were in the army already.
They were in the service.
They were already in service. So you do your homework, and then afterwards you'd go. Or what?
No, Friday night.
Oh, he'd always ask me, he says, you through with your homework? I said, yeah. Let's go to the show. We always went to the show.
Ethel go
You were
too?
always through with your homework.
I don't know.
Not so much.
Think about it, I don't remember Ethel going. But it's me and Dad seemed like.
I'd say one other thing, remind of school in 1942, when I signed up for the service, there was two of us signed up at the same time. It was Francis Dunbar and myself. And we had to catch a train at the Missouri Pacific track. And they got somebody to come out, we got their papa, and we was walking to the railroad station, and the whole band was
Yeah.
at the railroad station. Everybody from school let out and came to the railroad station
To see you
see
all?
me and Dunbar. We were one of the first ones,
That's right.
and
You got
they
your
and
service?
went to the
They
army.
let school out.
They let, yeah, about an hour early, and they all came to the train station to see us leave.
I'll tell you the biggest surprise of my life
What's that?
about your grandfather and your grandmother. I was stationed in Seattle, Washington, Everett, Washington. One day I got a call. Private Den, go to the West Gate. Went to the West Gate, and who was standing there? Papa and Mama. I'll never forget that. It was.
No, I'm sure that was.
They never told me
Listen,
a thing
took
about it.
3 or 4 days on the train.
They
and
sat on that train for 3 days and didn't have nothing to eat. They wouldn't touch any food on
You
that
know, if I'm
train.
not mistaken, it was during Payson.
No, it wasn't.
No,
No,
it
it
was-
wasn't doing payment because
they
I tell
took
you
us
what,
slogging.
I took them to Seattle to a kosher delicatessen. That was the first meal that they ate.
Huh.
And man, I'll never forget it as long as I live. That's one of those people I'd seen in almost a year.
Yeah, well, they were lost.
They were lonesome, and I think Manuel ran the store.
I ran the store.
By himself.
Manuel would tell the story about when you went to service, that you would
I want to
eat
hear
any
that.
of the army food. You, what did you eat?
Oh, it was the first Payson. They sent me
A care package.
I think 2 boxes.
Your parents
of
did?
boxes, yeah.
Yeah.
Salami.
And a jar of jelly, and a salami.
Uh-huh.
You know, salamis at that
Kosher
time were like this. They
Right.
didn't have small salamis.
Right.
And that's all I ate that whole Payson. First Payson in the service.
Huh.
I'll never forget my first pacer.
That was
They
the
had
basic training.
a pacer Seder in England, in Ipswich, England. They loaded all the Jewish people, Jewish boys, soldiers. We go to this here, it looked like a castle, and they had a meal. Pork chops, filter fish.
Oh,
What?
Oh gosh. Let me ask you real quick, each one of you. What did you do in the military? What from the beginning of the where did you go? Where were you at?
Well, my first
your basic.
took my part of my basic at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio.
Uh-huh.
And from Fort Sam Houston, I went to Wichita Falls, Texas, which is a hellhole of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only place I know you can walk in mud up to your knees and get dust in your eyes.
Yeah.
And we had a march in that stuff.
Where'd you go from there?
From Wichita Falls, I went to,
Illinois,
no, I went to Paynefield, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And from Paynefield, Washington, they sent me to Rantoul, Illinois, which I spent 6 weeks. I took all my basic Paynefield. And then I went 6 weeks training as an instrument specialist and ran to Illinois. Ran to Illinois, I went back to Painfield. And as soon as I got back in Painfield, they attached me to a 5th Bomb Squadron in Portland, Oregon. But my training wasn't in bombers, it was light aircraft. So they detached me from Portland, 5th Bomb Squadron, to 367 Bomb Group. And they sent me from there to Hayward, California. Before I went to Hayward, I got one of the bomber planes to take me to Los Angeles. That's when I met Sidney at Los Angeles. And Sidney was showing me his job. Everybody knew him, you know. He had a pretty good job. He was taking care of the general's dog. he had a good assistant. Red Ruffin, the baseball player, was his assistant.
So then you went from there to California?
Hayward, California.
And then from Hayward, California, you went?
That's right, and we were flying P-39s. And I was instrument specialist on P-39.
Then from there you went overseas from there?
And I'll never forget the night we had a Major General Smith, our commanding officer. He says, "Fellas, the shit is hit the fan. We're leaving in 3 days for New York City. We're going overseas." We had 3 days to prepare to move out of Hayward, California. We went from Hayward, California to Camp Shanks in New York. Boarded the ships at Camp Shanks.
So you went from there to England?
Right to England, to Ipswich, England.
And then from England you landed in France?
Right.
And from
France, we went all the way through France. In France, I was stationed St. Mary Glace, the first spot at St. Mary Glace. Then went to Le Mans, France, then Reims, France. Then to A-22, which was about, I would say A-22 must have been about 75 miles, Frankfurt, Germany. We went from A-22, we went to Metz, through Metz, into Frankfurt, Germany. That's where I got my Duesenberg. Frankfurt, I confiscated it. I was driving on the Autobahn, and a general stopped me and asked me where I got the Duesenberg. And I told him I confiscated from the German. He said, "Well, Sergeant, I'm afraid you're going to lose your Duesenberg. He says, I need a field car, and I like this car." So I got out, I had a hitchhike back to the camp. They took my car over.
So you...
And how long were you there? How many years?
Well,
How many
years?
months?
it was months. Let's see, I landed in Europe on D4, which is June the 10th. The war didn't last but about a year over there.
Yeah.
Less than a year.
I know. So you were there 1 year?
Approximately 1 year.
So you finished up in Germany and you came back to the States then?
No. We went to Marseille. We were boarding a ship in Marseille, and we were going from Marseille to Cairo, Egypt, and going to Japan through the Suez Canal. We got to Cairo, and the commanding officer says, "Return back, the war's over."
In Japan, that was in August then, huh?
That's right.
So you came back
In
home.
August, I went back to New York, went through the Gibraltar.
Back home.
Back home.
Dad, what did you wind up doing?
Well, I started in Sam Houston the same way, and then went to Wichita Falls. And from Wichita Falls, I was shipped out to Long Beach, California. And I stayed in Long Beach, California for about a year and a half, and they shipped me to Miami Beach, Florida, to non-commissioned officer school. Then from non-commissioned officer school, they sent me back to California, Long Beach, and I stayed there about 6 months, and then they sent me to Greensboro, North Carolina. We were supposed to go to the North African, and in the meantime, when we got there, the North African, everything was, the war finished up, so they took a train and put us back on a train and sent us to San Francisco, and from San Francisco, they sent us to Hawaii, and we got to Hawaii, and we was there about, let's see, I got there, and then the war in Japan finished, and I stayed there until after that, and then I came back to the
Sent you
States.
back to
You know,
States.
you spent some time in Miami Beach, didn't
Yeah, he
I
said that.
I
Yeah.
went to Miami, non-commissioned officer there.
Uncle Manuel, what was your story?
Well, I also was inducted at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. I was drafted, left Bay City, went to Houston. From Houston, they sent me to by train to Fort Sam in San Antonio.
What year did you go?
1944, then 44, 45, must be 45.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed there for about a week, and they shipped me to Mineral Wells at Camp Walters, Texas. I took 6 weeks of basic training. I came home for 2 weeks for furlough. We called Sidney and told him I was going to be in Los Angeles at a certain time, remember? Yeah. And Sidney was at the station. My train was about, I guess, 12 hours late. And I was supposed to be I think I was supposed to be in Los Angeles at 12 o'clock in the evening. And I got there at 12 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
And anyway, I called Dad and asked Dad to call Sidney. He called Sidney and said I was going to be late, but didn't know what time. Of course, you couldn't tell what time the train schedule
Military
would be.
schedule. Sure.
So when I got there, I wanted to see Sid real bad, and everything seemed to be, falling into place. Notice this soldier that had I asked how to get to Long Beach, what it was. And the guy said, well, you got to go to the P&E station. I asked how to get there. I'd never been to a big city or anything. So anyway, I caught a taxi. He took us to Pacific Electric Station, where I caught a train. Well, when I got to P&E station, I noticed there was a guy that had the same insignia as Sidney. And I asked him, I says, did you know my brother, Sidney? Yeah, there might have been 10,000 people on the base. He got no Sidney Den? He says, no, I don't. Says, but I tell you what, why don't you come to camp with me? And you can spend the night. My buddy isn't going to be in his bunk. You can spend the night, get up early in the morning, and go to your, maybe you could find your brother. So, sure enough, I got up about 5 o'clock, got dressed, thanked the guy, left him a note, I didn't want to wake him up, and I walked right around the corner, and I walked in this here command post there, and I told the sergeant there, I says, I'm looking for my brother. He says, what's his name? I said, Sidney Den. Sidney Den. What did you say his name was? I said, Sidney Den. You mean Den? I said, I guess so. He said, I'm just going to wake him up, you remember?
All right.
So I went into his barracks and woke Sidney up. He was really surprised, and he went to his commanding officer and they let him off for the day.
Yeah.
And
Had you gone there though the night before?
he went
I
to
waited
the
to the station.
I can't even remember how I met Sidney. I knew I
You
flew in a
come
lot.
So
you
anyway,
come
we
to
spent the
Bay
day
City.
together.
You
We
came
spent
out on
the day
base,
together.
Yeah,
Just one
I
second.
landed on
Yeah,
the
1
way.
second. Wait 1 second. Let him finish the story and we'll go over there.
So I got on they put me on the train that next evening, and I went to Fort Ord. I spent, I think, 2 weeks at Fort Ord,
Yeah.
and they shipped us out from there. The island we first stopped at the Marshall Island, for a few hours. They let us off the ship, and they had these boats took us to the shore, and everybody, of course, they had cold beer, and that was that's the big thing.
Sure.
Then we went to the island. I'm sure you, I don't know if y'all are familiar with, but Annie-Waytok. That was the island they set off
Right.
the first atomic bomb.
Right.
At sea. And we stopped at Anawaytalk for probably several hours, or maybe a day, I don't even remember exactly.
What battalion, what troop, and what area?
Well, I was
were you in?
I was unattached to anything. Then then we went from there to the island of Cebu in the Philippines. And of course, between Anawaytalk and the Philippines in Cebu, the war ended. And I'll never forget, they announced over the loudspeaker that a bomb had been dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And we couldn't grasp it was just one bomb. We thought, they just saturated the place. And we began to talk, and they found out it was just one bomb. Of course, we were all glad it was over with. But we went on, and we joined what Cebu Island, which was where all the new soldiers were coming in at. And then they sent us to Leyte, which where I joined the 77th Division. And they were just moving out. They were going to Japan, and they had issued us all clothing. Clothing was 3 times bigger than we ever needed. We all laughed and had a lot of fun. They gave us a lot of heavy underwear because the island of Hokkaido is the northernmost island in the Japanese chain. And they knew it was going to be very cold. And they gave us big clothes, so we wore a lot of clothes underneath. So we got to Hattori on the southern coast of Hokkaido, and it was beautiful, really. You see the mountains, and they were all terraced. You can see how they were terraced up in the mountains, and they grew crops on the mountains. And we got off the boat there, we got on a train, and went to a camp called Asaigawa, Japan. It took us 6 hours to get there. And we got there, it seemed like the 6th, within 3 or 4 days we got our first snow. And within a week we had drifts 8 foot deep. It was cold. And we stayed there till, I think, probably January, and they disbanded the 77th Division, the 1st Airborne took over. We went from there, we crossed the Straits of Hokkaido, and they shipped us to a place called Sendai. By the way, I met Samuel Kogan in Sendai.
You met Samuel Kogan?
Samuel Kogan in Sendai, Japan. He'd asked, I don't know what it was, he found out he had heard somebody from Texas was stationed at the hospital, and where I was attached to. And he came down, we spent a day together. And from Sendai, they shipped me to Tokyo. And I spent, I guess, about several months, 3 or 4 months in Tokyo. I made friends with some Japanese people. I had his address, I lost the boat.
What was his name?
Huh?
What was his name? Well, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, after, I was getting enough points to go home. They sent me to Yokohama, and we caught the ship to Yokohama, and we came back through Seattle back to Fort Sam, where I was discharged.
You came back to Fort Sam Houston. So
I remember Dad called me. Of course, I knew Sidney and Gertrude were married, and they came to New Brunswick, down in New Brunswick. Remember?
I sure do.
where'd y'all meet? New Braunfels or Seguin?
No, that's the first I've heard of this story.
What happened?
It's the first time I ever met Gertie, and
Tell them how I met you. You remember?
yeah, she tried to pick me up.
Really?
He and Pop begged me to do that.
Where was this?
Play like I'm just picking him up.
Where was this at? Which store was that at?
Medlovitz's store.
And what happened?
So
How
I
did
walked in, and there's this guy. He's in uniform. I think you were still in uniform. And so they told me, "Damn it, that's him." And go over there. So I went
this is
over.
Pop and Dad both did this?
Yeah.
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 I walked over and I kind of looked at him and said, "Hi." And he looked at me and said, "Hi." But I was kind of scared. I was really shy. And I said, "Is your name Manuel?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah."
That's
I
funny.
would say, what are you doing
That's,
tonight? Well, I'm leaving. Oh.
One more, One more story on the war. Herman, I heard you used to play little cards over there, little 21 and stuff. Did you?
I was a pretty good card player until I got on the boat coming back.
What happened?
I'd won about $20,000 on the boat coming back. By the time I got to New York, I didn't have 2 cents in my pocket.
Really, you lost it?
That was a real good card player.
Did you lose your stripes too once?
One time, but I got them back right away.
What was that
Just
for?
2 weeks.
What was that for?
Insubordination.
What'd you do?
I told the Jewish lieutenant to go to hell.
Really? What?
One other story I want to bring in is when the Gutsacre Pop and the Gutsacre Mom went up to Washington to visit Herman. Pop said everybody knew Herman. He says, "Hey, Joe, how's everything?" And Herman says, "Fine, fine." Says, "So when you gonna pay me the $10? So when you gonna pay?" Everyone on it, he owed everybody on the base.
Is that right? Really?
Everybody owed money on the base.
So-
Pop says, "What the hell goes on?" He says, "Well, you know, I wasn't drawing, but I think he drawed $21.
$21. My
$15.
first paycheck was $2.12.
Really?
Well, you got $21, $6.50 went for insurance.
Yeah.
Remember?
And
And
pillows,
$2, I think
blankets.
$2 from laundry, which is $8.50. What did you leave for?
They made y'all pay all of that. They got you.
So I thought most of y'all used to send dollars back home.
Well,
Oh, later, probably.
we're some was a little more. We didn't do as much playing, enjoying life as Herman.
So I heard.
Herman enjoyed life a
Well, they
little bit.
furnished you the food, they furnished you the clothes.
Yeah.
Of course, the clothes didn't fit or anything.
First you placed it, sleep.
All the time. Then you said, well, you know, tell that one.
What story was that?
Came home, bought a furlough one time, and Pop says, "Does every soldier ride home to get as much money as you do?" I said, "Well," he says, "they probably don't lose as much as I do." And he says, "For that reason, you're not going to get any more checks from home."
Oh, really? Yeah, you have a good cow, you milk it, huh?
Yeah.
What did he say? Cow just went dry.
I just went around. That's the reason I say Pop had a great humor.
Had a good sense of humor, huh? Well, I'll tell you, I have much more to talk about, but I'm afraid the hour is late.
Sure is.
And what I would like to do is just to make this just the first of a few other interviews that we'll do, hopefully, in Mirza Hashem, over the next few years.
Maybe we'll have continuation how these ladies got into the family.
I would very much like to do that,
Oh, all right.
but I don't know when is a good time to do that.
Apparently
Okay,
you'll
good
be here in
time.
May. You'll be here for
That's
the
right.
reunion.
Your reunion. We're having
The problem is the reunion people we have to get away, and the people don't like to talk about this kind of
Well,
stuff.
you're-
at a
You
reunion.
may not be
One
home,
day.
you may be home more than that one day,
That's true.
if you could make it 2 days.
That's true. Just leaving off right at the point where they're getting married, and then now the women folk come in. So all right, it's been a pleasure, an interesting experience, and we will continue this
Yeah.
in the future.
And then maybe we can pick up how they got into their business or something.
That's right.